Hello and welcome to yet another exciting episode of BB Uncovered, powered by the Movement Studio. This is a specially curated podcast series celebrating the life of Dr. Biodun Shobanjo and his 80 years around the sun. My name is Tosin Adefeko, but my friends call me Tosh. Today, I have with me at the Movement Studio one of the legends of advertising on this continent. He does not like the whole exaltation, but we just have to call him who he is. He is Mr. Jimi Awosika, the Vice President of the Halogen Group. You're very welcome, Bale.
Thank you very much for having me.
I must say, he also happens to be my boss. He trained me in marketing. And today, I'm just going to act like I'm not in awe of him because I'm here to interview him. But he knows that on a normal day, we're not sitting on the couch like this together. I'm sitting behind the table with my legs wobbly. Bale, it's so great to see you.
Yeah, thanks. But then, correction.
Yes, sir.
His name is actually Biodun Shobanjo.
Not Biodun Shobanjo.
Yes, and
Thank you.
actually not a lot of people know him as Olushino.
Yes.
And not a lot of people know him as Biodun. Most people, in fact, if not everybody knows and calls him Biodun Shobanjo.
Biodun Shobanjo. Yeah. So we then decided to title this series BB Uncovered because we also know that some people fondly call him BB.
Yes.
So we want people to be curious enough to say, who is BB?
Yeah. Those who call him BB are not exactly, not a lot of Nigerians call him BB. It's his foreign friends.
Foreign friends,
who call him
get
BB.
you.
Basically, with the whites, if they find it difficult calling your name, they will try to give you some kind of a moniker, just basically saying, BB, JJ.
Yes, got you.
And that's how he came about the BB. So most times, he won't even refer to himself as BB.
Yes.
Except he's talking to someone who he thinks doesn't know him too well. Or is
But his cars, though, when I was with the group, his cars had BB1, BB2.
Yeah, because at that particular point in time, they are changed from LA, so to whatever. And to then
that was the best.
So then, BB.
So it's not bad that we're still using it as the
No,
okay.
Not exactly.
Just checking.
No, the point I'm trying to make is that if you call him Olushino Biodun Shobanjo, you're actually talking of a different person.
Got you.
It's not Olushino Biodun Shobanjo. And he's not, and he does not even also refer to himself as Biodun Shobanjo. Biodun Shobanjo.
Oh, so we should even remove the Olushino, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, official documentation might read Biodun Olushino Shobanjo.
Yes.
But it's Biodun Shobanjo. It's like most people call me. I doubt if anybody will come around and say, Jimi Awosika, people will go around like,
they just go Jimi Awosika.
But Jimi Awosika is
got
Jimi
you.
Awosika. So
team, can you hear that? Yeah. Bale, I mean, for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to call you Bale because that's what I'm used to calling you. Now, the first question I usually ask people is, what is your BB story? It's easy for me to just ask you that, but I don't want to ask you in the way I've asked other people because for me, I feel like your name is synonymous with Dr. Biodun Shobanjo's name. Once someone calls Dr. Biodun Shobanjo, the next name is Jimi Awosika. So there's a sense in which people already know your story. Oh, they co-founded Insight, blah, 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 blah. That's the formal story. What I want to ask you is slightly different, which is, what is the story behind the story? What do people not know? Because I've read your tribute, and I was practically shaking that I've known you for many years, and even I didn't know the story. So can you share a little of that with us? The story behind the story, your BB encounter.
Okay, let's start by again having everything in the right perspective.
Okay, sir.
A whole lot of people have said we co-founded Insight. I didn't co-found Insight with him.
That's why we're here.
Dr. Shobanjo founded Insight Communications, and he basically brought me along.
Okay.
I must also say that I feel privileged that I was at that point close enough to him to feel his discomfort with the way things were going in the agency that he was in then and was the deputy managing director.
Yeah.
And if you know Dr. Shobanjo very well, when he's not very comfortable with anything, he starts thinking of how to change it. So I was an account executive. Don't forget, he employed me as an account executive trainee.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be at the NBC. I was a senior sub-editor. And again, that's my then boss, to try and get me. I told him I wanted to go into advertising, and he said, "Well, advertising, what do those guys do? In those days, the real guys were in broadcasting or worked at which was the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation,
Yes.
or maybe WNTV, WNBS. So you had to be, for you to be some real top guy in communication, you had to work in advertising. Sorry, you had to work in broadcasting. And the top broadcast houses were the NBC. The director general at that point was Dr. Christopher Kolade. And he also was the director general of what then was the NBC TV that started off in 1964 as the NTS.
Okay.
But at that point it was NBC TV, and then you had WNTV, WNBS in the West. So I was employed after school as a senior sub-editor. But then after about 1.5 years, I sort of just got tired of it and said, so I told my then boss, Chief Biodun Adeni, that really I had enough of broadcasting and I wanted to go into advertising. And the guy was like, advertising? What do they do there? These guys, he didn't really think it was a very professional industry. But said, well, I have a friend, who left here, but now has just been promoted deputy managing director, at Grant Advertising. And he said, I'll get you an appointment, And that was it. One fine day, I suspect it was midweek, he came to the office and he said, I saw Remy Biodun this afternoon. And then, he had this way of talking about people. So he said, he was in a suit, one suit to me, Biodun Remy, and they said, well, I told him about you. And he said, well, he had heard about you from your professor. I said, but I'll set up a meeting. So he then said, please see him on this particular day. We didn't have mobile phones in those days. Yes. So, the appointment was for 5 p.m. on the 27th of June, 1977. That was the day I met Dr. Biodun Shobanjo.
The specific date.
Yeah, that was the day I met Dr. Biodun Shobanjo.
Yes, sir.
And, I guess from that day I became his boy, so to speak. He was deputy managing director and I was
junior to him.
No, not junior. He was deputy managing director. And it wasn't only deputy managing director, it was actually literally the guy who ran the professional side of the business.
Gotcha.
So most of the clients wanted to talk to him. It was the one that also held not only the product standards, but also the service standards. So I haven't met him on the 27th of June, sort of just took a liking to me. And long and short of it was that, got me a job at Grant. And on the 2nd of January 1978, I became an account executive trainee, not account executive.
A trainee.
A trainee. And that was how exacting the standards were in those days. Can you imagine? I was 2 years post-qualification. I had a BSc in mass communication. Some guy, and I'd also worked in marketing, with the great Ikazi Yakubu. And then some guy will now want to employ you and say, account executive trainee.
Wow.
But it was nice. So initially I wasn't in his group. In those days there were 3 groups. So the first group was headed by the managing director, but didn't have too many people in that group. Largely because it was headed by the managing director, Mr. Festus Akinlade. And then the second group was headed by the deputy managing director, that's Dr. Shobanjo himself. Okay. And then the third was headed by the resident professional consultant, Mr. David Emsley. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was initially in Mr. Emsley's group, but then within 2 weeks, I sort of like just been, initially it started with being asked to take a brief on EMI, so take over EMI. I took over EMI because the senior account executive had left.
Yeah.
And then about a month after, I was given the brief for NASCO, and then gradually, then got on to food specialties.
Yes.
And so within 3 months, I was fully aligned in Dr. Shobanjo's group. It wasn't very funny in those days. I mean, most people dreaded being in that group.
I see.
Not because for all the reasons that, you so like, it's easy to conjecture. There you are in the deputy managing director's group, and he also was in charge of professional standards. And then if you know Dr. Shobanjo.
So obviously, if you were not the sort that was, in terms of your mind, excellent in thoughts and all of that, you'd obviously dread to work with such a person.
Oh, of course. I mean,
yes, by default.
In fact, in those days, all you'd see is a very short memo, like 2 pages long.
A very short memo that is 2 pages long.
Yeah. And it will start with your surname, dear Mr. Awosika.
Awosika. Oh my God.
Yeah. Then trouble.
Wow.
He'll first of all, and he usually would write his memos very much like a prosecutor would.
Yeah.
So he will state the offense, the issues. He will state the issues. And then he will state your performance, saying 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he'll go on to now tell you his own views of your performance against those issues.
Wow.
All right.
In that detail.
Yeah. And then finally tell you what he thinks you need to do.
Okay.
And most times it will involve you having to, within a given period of time, shape up, because he will state it very clearly there that the motivation would be for him to recommend you to actually be moved out of his group.
Wow.
If you are moved out of Dr. Shobanjo's group, you are actually out of the agency.
system.
So
amazing. That is a very great first story, sir. So tell me.
So to answer,
Yes.
so I've answered your question in a
Of
roundabout.
meeting. Yes, I know.
That's how I met him.
Exactly, which is why
to answer
Yes.
to also correct the impression that we co-founded.
Co-founded.
I think nobody co-founded Insight with him.
Can I assure you, sir, that this is the absolute first time I'm hearing this, and I'm one of the closest people to Dr. Show as well. He's never said, they just say 2 of you co-founded, and you just accept. In most of the write-ups and interviews. So
if you were to now think, if you were to actually talk about the people who were with him, who left Grant with him.
Yes. You were one of them.
Yes, but then I wasn't the only one. So you had Sheson Ogunro, you had Richard Ibe.
Got you.
You had Johnson Adebayo.
Which brings me to my next question, sir. I mean, I started a company like 7 years ago. When I set out to go and start my company, and I was looking for partners. I didn't necessarily find anybody to follow me. So I started my own company on my dining table by myself. It was only when the money started to flow in that some people said, this woman is onto something. Maybe, right? Till we got to this point. But for you guys to have looked at Dr. Show from the moment he said, I want to go and set up Insight. And those of you had only worked with him for maybe 2 years from the timelines you're giving, 78 to 1980 when Insight was set up. You worked with him for 2 years. Can you share some personal stories?
I'm trying to, because you see, again, there were 5 of us who left with him, But between March 1979, between March 1979 and October 1979, when he actually brought the other people in, there were just 4 people who knew about his wanting to go set up the agency. Of course, he knew he wanted to set up the agency. His wife. He had spoken to the wife about it. Then his friend Saleh Nasreddin, who then was the managing director of NASCO.
NASCO, okay.
You know. And he staggered along Jimi Awosika. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew about it. I can actually say that because he had been talking to me about it, not in terms of saying I'm going to set up an agency. You know, as I said earlier, if Dr. Shobanjo is not happy with anything, he will change it. You know, he will work to change it. And at that particular time, when I joined in 1978, in January 1978, it was clear that the agency was very vibrant. I mean, you had 3 top advertising people, you know, running all of them in one way or the other, running the agency. But then the distance in billings between the first and leading agency, Lintas, and OBM and Grant was like light and day. And firstly, Dr. Shobanjo didn't like that. But his colleagues were sort of like comfortable because, you know, the business was winning accounts. But by, you know, sometime, I think, if I'm correct now, I can't really remember, I think it was in June or July 1978, he went to Mombasa, you know, on leave. And he came back. And when he came back, I noticed some difference. You know, and it wasn't because he saw anything in Mombasa. It was just the fact that I think he had time to reflect on issues. Which he tends to do very well, even now, you know. But he came back and his first reaction was like, things ain't just right here. And, you know, from time to time, he will ask me what I thought of the output of the agency. Initially, well, I guess maybe because I was just a rookie then. I'll just go on and just say it the way I saw it. You know, and he encouraged me to do that. You know, although I think that if it's now, most bosses would have fired you with the kind of things I was saying. I mean,
to him.
Yeah, I mean, it was pure treason. You know, I mean, what I was telling him was pure treason. You know, but he encouraged that and said, "What do you think? What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And then, you know, started probing deeper. And you could see that from the point of view of an outsider or some young guy who had just looked in, it was more like the case of the king has no clothes on. And he saw it and he took that like wisdom and said, okay, yeah, I think I'm right here now. Then I could see he was talking. I really wasn't there, but I got a sense from what he was telling me because, you know, we'd always travel to Jos together and all that. And I was close to him. And he would tell me things like, I still don't think we got it right. I think, I know, when he's actually very disturbed about anything, you know, it becomes the center of focus for him. So everything he was focused on that. So if you were out, you know, for a meeting or you on the way back, he took you out for lunch or he invited you for drinks or whatever, within 5 minutes it will go, you'll just find yourself talking about that issue. You know, and that's so from that point of view, I became apprised of, you know, this thing he was trying to put together. And again, for about 6 months, all of the things he was doing, I was just the only one that knew, you know, aside his wife and Saleh.
So, I mean, so just share some of his personality traits, because I'm trying to, you know, look back into those years, what you saw in him at that time, some of his personality traits that helped you to decide to go along with him on this journey. We're talking about an over 40-year journey here. But I'm still trying to focus on the beginning.
I can tell you, even now, if it were all to happen today, and I tell everybody who cares to listen, that he didn't have to offer me anything. I would just have followed him willingly. I still would do that today. You know, so that tells you, and I'm not exactly the unquestioning type. You know, but everything about him sort of like recommended him to me like a leader. You know what I mean? Number one is clarity of vision. It was clear in those days that of all the three senior people, he had the clearest vision, about what an advertising agency should be doing. As a matter of fact, not exactly an advertising agency, any service organization.
Gotcha.
So for him, it was all about product quality, service quality. And of course, time you have to take for granted, because with Dr. Shobanjo, 10 o'clock actually means 10 o'clock. In terms of being there, it means 9:45.
Yes.
So you have to take time for granted.
Yeah.
And then, the issue of costs. He's not exactly, he's not your cost manager, but he'll keep an eye on it insofar as it's a resource, for ensuring the final product.
Yes.
But Dr. Shobanjo doesn't start with, how much is it going to cost? He doesn't operate like that. So, so number one was the clarity of vision.
Yes.
Number two was the fact that, again, not a lot of people know this about him, but Dr. Shobanjo actually thinks about people. He's a real people's man. And he believes in the capacity and the ability of people to change things. So he's not the kind of manager who would, he doesn't subordinate people.
Gotcha.
He opens himself up for conversation,
Scrutiny.
discussion, and what have you. And he won't do anything that he has to hide from you or anybody. He finds it difficult doing that because, again, for him, it's beneath his honor and integrity as a person to have to do something that he cannot defend.
That's powerful.
So he basically, most times, in all of the years I've known him, it's difficult for me to ask him a question and he won't answer. He'll basically tell you, oh yeah, this is it, Jimi. There are times he will say, whoosh, solita.
So,
but
say them as later.
of
You
course,
will say it
later.
later.
But so people, he had these, and then number three is, the ability to focus on what the real issues are.
Clarity.
And again, that's it, even in terms of his relationship with you.
Yes.
I've been ill now for about 6 months. And if you want to know who's been there all of that time aside my wife and my kids, it's Dr. Shobanjo.
Dr. Show.
And still talking about focusing on issues. Now, so over the last 4 weeks, the doctors have said, well, you need to go out, you need to be, and they've literally said, you have to start going out. Now, for Dr. Shobanjo, it's like, yes, you have to go out, but be careful. And now, in terms of focusing on the issue, that's the only issue that Dr. Shobanjo focuses on now with me. Every other thing, forget it.
Anything else. Wow.
Forget it.
Amazing.
As late as yesterday, he still wrote me a memo.
On your health? Or what?
Yeah, he had come to my place and he had been told that I left home. And, that's another story.
Yeah.
And he said, he won't keep it to himself. He'll write you a memo and he'll
on record.
Yeah.
That you really should be in one place.
As far as he was concerned, as a matter of fact, he started it up by saying, Jimi, Awosika, mo one year. That's another story, but mo one year.
It's funny, sir. Let me interrupt you. Actually, I can relate with this so much. Last year or so, I did a thyroid operation, and he knew about it. I didn't want to tell him, but he knew about it. He was calling me every evening till he found out that I had flown out of London to another city, and he was in shock. Like maybe 6 or 7 days after the operation. But I was more in shock. Like, a normal person, you are my boss. If you find out once or twice, that's okay now. You should be okay. But he was following up every day till he found out that I had. I was in shock.
And even after that, look, I promise you, I'm not going to sit
Yes.
with him and say, but Eggs, the doctors say
Say
I'm
you
fit
can-
to, because that's another problem.
Oh my God.
Because the response will be Mr. Awosika.
Mr.
It stops that. Now you stop
Not
being
Ebbs again.
no, you stop being whoosh,
It's
and
not being Ebbs.
you stop being whoosh,
Mm.
you know, and then the old whoosh goes out of the window,
Oh my
you know,
God.
and you're no more Jimi. Now it's Mr. Awosika.
That means take this seriously.
No, not the case of take this very
What?
seriously. No other conversation after that.
Wow. Period.
That's it.
That's on
Mr.
period.
Awosika. No more conversation.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about the transition of your relationship. I mean, you've said a lot, so I hope I'm not being a tad bit repetitive here, but I just want to make sure we cover as much ground. How did you evolve from, when you first met him to the early stages to early work? How did your relationship evolve into what you are today?
To be fair to him.
Yes.
Now, don't forget, and he was my boss, and
Okay.
he's still my boss.
Mm.
All right. So for the relationship to go anywhere,
He was the driver.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be him.
Okay.
There was not much I could do to drive that.
Got you.
So he was the one that he encouraged. As I said to you earlier, he normally would encourage anybody that's around him to get close to him. Now, if he doesn't think that you have anything, whatever. But then, I mean, even before I joined Grants,
yes.
I remember he had told me, he took me home after the interview or after the conversation that we had in his office on 27th of June and met my mom, who had just been widowed. And after about, trust women, my mom was, the first time my mom saw him, she was really impressed. And my mom said, okay, look, after about 30 minutes, because he had to leave, so my mom told him, look, Aburo eni, go buy my coffee shop. And that's, so again, he felt that he had the responsibility, and I remember that about once or twice, he would send me notes. I was at the NBC then.
Yeah.
Once he invited me to a party that he was having at his place. And then I think on another occasion, he sent me through Sheson Ogunro, who then was working at Grant, but was my colleague at the NBC. He sent me a bunch of old campaign and ad age
materials.
Editions. And then with a short note said, just try and read through this. So he really encouraged the relationship, and I felt, and I still feel very grateful for that, because he could easily have left it at just, hey, Bobs, you still right there, and that's it, But then, I guess at the same time, he's a very humorous fellow, very humorous.
That's true.
Yeah, and he likes to laugh. So if you also got a good sense of humor, you'll make
enjoy his company.
Yes. So, and maybe not a lot of people know that about me, but I crack a lot of jokes, and I also can.
If you know, those of us.
Yeah, and I sometimes can also be, very rascally, and that as for him, as long as it doesn't get too close to the edge, that's fine. I mean,
very funny. Okay, sir. I love how we've sort of dimensioned your journey with him and his personality versus yours and all of that. But let's talk a bit about your work.
My what?
Your work. Your work over the years. Your work
the work.
Yes, the work.
Insight's work.
Yes.
Okay.
Your work in the group, building Insight, leading into Troika and all of that. And when I was trying to do research for this conversation, there was a part that I saw where Bibi described you as, and I want to read it out, the most knowledgeable and intellectual powerhouse. In his own words, in one of his interviews. So why did he describe you in that way? And is that what, in terms of when they say, what did you bring to the table? Is that your own strength, your own How in the relationship?
I think more than anything else.
Yes.
Well, if you said that, don't forget. I mean, I can't sit down and say I'm an intellectual powerhouse.
Yes,
I
I get that.
There's nothing called that.
He said that, so
Yeah, so maybe that's what he sees. But one thing I know I bring to the table, I always will bring to the table, is curiosity. And, so basically saying, why should we do it this way? Why not think about it this way? And that always challenges him, and then gets him to think again about whatever it is that he has before him. And that was important in the days of old, because there really weren't a lot of people. One that had that breadth of knowledge around communication and marketing.
Yes.
So advertising was seen more like, it was actually like the last mile in decisions around marketing. So, and Dr. Shobanjo didn't think that was the way it should be, and I didn't. So for him, it was important that he had someone with him who actually would see things from the point of view of the receiver of the message. So I'd always ask, all right, what are we trying to say here? Even in the very early days, not him, but I'll ask that of my colleagues. And that always got everybody a bit ruffled, because the whole thing was like, in those days, there wasn't any rhyme to the rhythm. It was just basically, client said we should do this. Client said we should do that. So the client's briefs were always, client wants so. Client wants you to. And very early on, I was always asking, but why does the client want that?
And I remember you also trained us in that way to ask.
And who are we talking to?
Yes.
And more importantly, anyway, the buyer who the client is trying to appeal to may not necessarily be the person who needs the information. And because the information might be the information might actually be useful more to the decision maker, who might be the buyer or not the buyer, and might also not be the consumer. So if he's not the consumer but needs to know something about what the strengths or weaknesses of the product and the brand are, then that's the person you want to talk to, not the person who's consuming. Because, for example, decisions around this company might not necessarily be taken by you. All decisions might not be necessarily taken by you. So there are some decisions that are taken by some people, and to that extent, those are the people that we need to focus on.
Gotcha.
And so he actually, that was the way he had always been thinking. And so now it's regular fare. That's the way,
exactly.
Insight popularized that, got everybody thinking along those lines.
You would always say you should always interrogate the why.
Look, human beings, we are actually, everything that drives us is our motivation. We're motivated by something.
Gotcha.
So the next question to ask is, what motivates this consumer? And if you know what motivates the consumer, then you might actually be able to take a look at your message and then say, I actually don't necessarily have to approach this from the point of view of fear. I can approach it from the point of view of familiarity. Or it might actually be a case in which you're giving something to the consumer that actually makes the consumer feel like he or she has got to add something to it, to that message, and then helps the message along. I don't know if I'm making sense. So those were the kind of, that's what I mean by the curiosity. And so by asking those questions, it really got him, because he was trained like that himself.
Yes.
As a communication theorist. So, but while he was deputy managing director, he didn't have those kind of people around him. So it sort of like fitted where he was going, and said, okay, fine. Now, if that's it, then let's start designing an organization, that would operate this way.
On that premise,
And to that extent, when we came up with the name Insight, he was deliberate in not calling it Insight Advertising. He called it Insight Communications. And it was the first company in Nigeria that would have communications
as part of its name.
Not only the name, but communications being everything about the business itself.
The strategy and all.
Yeah, everything.
Gotcha.
So it was communications. And there also was something about ensuring that you could measure consumer responses.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
So on the basis of that, we then had to structure what we call the brand advertising strategy,
yes.
Into something that started off with the consumer, the audience. And we'd always ask the question, who's this person? And so demography, lifestyle, psychography, media habits. So, that was that really for him was the rigor, the intellectual rigor that you had to bring to communication. And then, next he will ask, now tell me the source of business. Where is this? What we're trying to do? Where is the source of business for this brand? And if it was a human being, how would it appeal, to others? And how would it sort of like have an advantage over its competitors? Now, it seems a very simple question because just source of business. But, when you really think deep about it, you find out that, hey, it's not that simple a question. Because then you've got to understand what the product does, how it fits the needs of the consumer, and then what it is about that brand or the product that you now have to pitch over and above what the competitors are pitching.
In other words, from what I hear you say, so what will make the consumer buy?
Yeah, and so that was how it all started.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And for him, it was very important that he had someone the like of that in his team who would force the organization to think
respond to those questions.
And then it was also something that he knew that he could pitch at the market, and the market would look at differently. And that's a fact, because the market then saw it differently, and it was like, wow, this is different from everything you got out here.
Wow.
And that was how, to my mind, Insight has been able to just...
Yes. This feels like a masterclass. Like I'm undergoing one of our sessions when I was at the group.
Oh, you are?
Yes, I am. And I can't wait for the listeners to listen to this. Okay, sir. So let's share a story or two. We can't let you go until you share a story or two of one of your biggest wins. If you like, see, and I know this is a 40-year-old, 45-year-old even question, so I don't expect you to start reeling out campaign after campaign. But, one or two that sort of excited you, that moved the tide a little, something strong, something powerful that people want to hear.
Well, I think the account win that sort of like changed the tide. And, 1980, 81, we were getting small pieces of businesses here and there that kept the till,
the business running.
Yeah, the till was rolling, and then also business was running. But definitely it wasn't, those are not things that Dr. Shobanjo was interested in, But then late 1982, through his friend, Senator Odunsi, we got on the short list for cocoa industries. At that time, cocoa industries was basically not a consumer company. It was they were
B2B.
They were not exactly B2B. They were actually an export company.
Exactly, I was going to say for export.
So all they did was just they would take cocoa beans and then roast it and then process it and then just. So, but somehow the I think the Odua Group decided that they also wanted to get into the consumer business. So they've come up with this brand called Vitalo. And some real good product, I must say. Very advanced for its time, because it was, cocoa is an oil seed. And so it made, in those days, most of the cocoa powder, it was always difficult getting it to dissolve easily, But they had done some research on it, and they called it agglomeration, So it made Vitalo, at that point, the only brand in the market, that would just dissolve easily in water. So anyway, long and short of this was that we got on the short list. There were 13 companies that were asked to pitch for the business. And for Dr. Shobanjo, that was something. Firstly, the billing was about ₦1 million, and that was, in those days,
big deal.
Wow. I mean, we had businesses that were, I think our biggest account at that point was Welcome, and about 200,000. We also had Chisro Ponds, the Vaseline, and about 180. But here
So
was,
imagine getting
1 million. Wow. So we went with it, we went for it with a vengeance.
Yes.
And so from 13, and we were the last to present to the board. They basically just quickly narrowed down to 2 agencies. So that will tell you how the level of the performance at that pitch, So there were 2 agencies, and again, everything. The preparation was, it was masterful. And after about 2 hours, after we left the office, we got a phone call from Mr. Ayo. It was his secretary then, who called and said, please hold on for the managing director. And we all were there, expectant. In those days, they would call you. The clients were very respectable people and respectful too. They'll call you to announce the results. So the man said, well, is that, firstly, when he got on the phone, and Mr. Shobanjo had it on the speakerphone, so that was all first there. And the man didn't say, is that Mr. Shobanjo? He said, is that Biodun? So that told us,
something good.
So he said, yeah. This is Biodun, Mr. Ayo. So he said, I'm happy to announce to you, we just finished the board meeting. I'm happy to announce to you that you've been chosen as the agency to launch Vitalo. The whole agency went crazy.
Oh my God.
And Mr. Shobanjo and Dr. Shobanjo and Mr. Ayo became great friends.
Wow.
Great friends. And that's also, I can tell you that most of his friends were friends he made while in advertising.
Yes.
He's just that kind of person.
I know. Amazing.
So that's one. The other one was 7-Up.
And that's an account you have managed for what, 30 years?
32 now.
Exactly. It's over 3 decades.
And again, that's the account at Insight. In fact, Insight and SBC and the El Khalils are one. It's
32 years.
Yeah, and that's one great client.
Amazing.
My God, fantastic client. And again, it all had to come from a situation where the client was looking for something more than what was out there. And I remember the discussion with late Faisal late Faisal Halabi, God bless his soul, and the managing director then, who is now the chairman, Faisal El Khalil. Sometime late in 1991. It was a very simple deal. Insight was number 2 at that time, but we were really at the heels of the
number one. Yes.
And so they said, it's a very simple deal. You make us number 1, we'll make you number 1.
Wow.
For real.
Amazing. So obviously, you're not trading. It's a trade-off. Like, if you can put us on.
No, you make us number 1. We'll make you number 1.
But I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You make us number 1. We'll
make you number 1. Yeah.
That means you had to sweat to make them number 1.
Yeah, and it also means that you actually, you have to become their partners.
Exactly.
And to be fair, SBC, to my mind, is still one of the best lines in Nigeria. I mean, they'll open up everything to you. And it's like, okay, this is
who we are.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. And then, boom, make it happen.
Love it.
Amazing.
We're slowly winding down because the team is busy prompting me, and I'm just enjoying this conversation. Like, I could sit with you for 2 hours. Let me ask you, it couldn't have been all good. There must have been some times of tension or conflict with you and BB. This is, we're uncovering real life, and I know as our leader, you've also coached me to make things real. So can you share 1 or 2 things on how you navigated? Yes, sir. Not letting you go till you share. How did you navigate times of tension and conflict?
Well, I can tell you that the only... With Dr. Shobanjo, the only conflict you'll have with him,
yes,
is basically issues around product quality or service quality. Simple. No other.
Okay.
No. I mean, he's a very...
He's not that difficult a person.
Yeah. No. I mean, at work, he always opens himself up.
Yes.
So, if you're therefore asking after... I honestly couldn't sit here and tell you this is where or this is what.
Yes.
Once there was a drop in service quality,
then
trouble.
Exactly.
Drop in product quality, trouble. And I mean big time trouble.
Yes.
Because either at the review meeting, I mean, you see him really lose it.
Enraged.
Really lose it. And you don't have to lose the account. It's just the fact that, I mean, how, Mr. Awosika, how did this get out of the agency? Please just tell me, Mr. Awosika.
Wow.
No, just tell me, Mr. Awosika, and then you go around there. No, excuse me, please don't help me. Can you please tell me how this left the agency? And a difficult question to answer. Because obviously, if you are supposed to be the standard bearer, how did he leave the agency? So you must have dropped the ball.
Gotcha.
Or you didn't keep your eyes on the ball. The only other times would be issues around human capital.
Okay.
In the early days,
yes,
we never used to lose people. People didn't leave Insight.
Gotcha.
So if for whatever reason, I remember there was a case of a young man who left the agency for whatever reason. I think he actually wanted to go somewhere else. And he had been put and, he had been approved and had been promised some real substantial
money, yeah.
And I think he found it was in account management, and I think he found it difficult, just telling anybody why he would leave Insight. And then he verbalized it thus: Mr. Awosika is too difficult.
Wow. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know about, I knew it was about leaving because he had come to me to tell me it was about leaving. But then I didn't know that that was the reason he gave. But somehow it got to the hearing of the managing director. So I got this short memo, you know. I mean, by the time I read it, I honestly didn't know what the issues were.
Yeah.
What he detailed, that is what Dr. Shobanjo detailed as the issues. Because I didn't think I was a difficult boss.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I do have my own
idiosyncrasies.
I mean, but that's so. Anyway, so I had to go see him, and boom. No sooner I got into his office, it was pa 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 pa. I mean, why would you keep on behaving this way? Why would you do this? Why would you do that? Everybody talks about you being difficult. And I was like, excuse me, sir. He said, no. That's what. And so I then said, now, who are these everybody?
Yes.
You're asking me that question. I said, sir, but who are these everybody? You're asking me that question, Mr. Awosika. I said, sir, who are these everybody? Now, that got him in a corner, and he didn't like it.
Yeah.
Firstly, he didn't like the fact that, you know, he had approached it that way.
Gotcha.
Because for me, the question was, and you know, he's a very fair-minded fellow. So he sort of like saw that because I kept asking. So every time I asked the question, I was backing him into a corner.
Gotcha.
I said, excuse me, sir, who are these? I need to know.
Exactly.
It can't be everybody. I mean, so I said, the way I can then take it, sir, is that you included think I'm being difficult.
Oh my God.
You know. So he said, no, that's not what I meant. Well, I mean, everybody who works with you. I said, everybody who works with me?
Who is everybody?
So, you know, somehow we got round. You know, we also have our ways of just,
I know, right?
You know, just
someone
stepping back.
No one can get between those two.
True, because with him, I know how to back. You know, again, Dr. Shobanjo is not the kind of person. You know, it doesn't kick you when you are down.
Yes.
He's not that kind of person. So when he thinks that you're like, I mean, you did you watch that Muhammad Ali Foreman fight?
Muhammad Ali Foreman. No,
yeah,
sir.
I mean that lasts. You know, the last 2 minutes of that fight. That's Dr. Shobanjo for you. Go watch it.
Okay.
You know, when Muhammad Ali went after the Foreman.
So when he was down, he left him.
Everybody thought, you know, before the fight that Foreman that the fight would end in the second round, and that Foreman was just going to. Foreman was a killer.
Yes.
And that gotten, I think, to the 7th or 8th round, and you know, maybe last minute. So Muhammad Ali went after him. You know, went boom, boom. And just 2 punches, and the guy was reeling, you know, on the way down.
Yeah.
Most other boxers, and I think would just go on boom, boom, boom. Muhammad Ali was like that.
As in,
so the guy was just going on, and he was like that.
Wow.
That's Dr. Shobanjo for you. Look, even in chastising you, when it goes to two, expect the first 1 minute.
Yes.
Hot. But then, at that point, don't look up. Just go that way. Because if you look up, to him, that's actually an affront.
Or defiance.
Oh, no, not defiance. It's affront.
Okay.
So just look down. Then, you know.
To calm him down.
No. He'll basically look back at you and then sort of like give you the impression that, look, there'll still be trouble. And then you can now explain. Excuse me a second.
Yes.
Can I explain? Yes. 1, 2. Oh, really? And then.
Oh my God.
Then, you know, so And then you're able to work it out.
Amazing. We could honestly sit here for longer than we're allowed to. But this is such an interesting conversation. I'm going to ask you one last question, sir. What do you think his ultimate legacy will be?
Well, the fact that I think it remained an industry, and maybe not just the advertising industry, but I must say the marketing communications and marketing industry.
Yes.
And in doing that, he not only recreated how people would see, services. He created, he actually, through his example, set higher order values for people around him who later became leaders in their own right.
Yes.
And they're all over the place. And most people will always, I think, I may be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Yes.
I think somewhere at the back of their mind, the question would always be there: what will Dr. Shobanjo say?
Do? What will Dr. Shobanjo say?
Yes.
What will Dr. Shobanjo do?
So there's always that. And, he's actually set the very high standards for everybody. That's the way I see it.
Yes, sir.
And I always tell people that, look, the greatest legacy is one in which, you affect people. It's just about people. So if you actually get people to start acting right, then no one will tell you that Dr. Shobanjo is about money. Nobody will tell you that.
Yes.
Nobody will tell you that it's about anything other than just doing things right. Just do it right.
That is an amazing, amazing legacy to have. And on
this
note,
yes, I believe so.
Yes, on this note, I'm going to end this conversation formally. I believe I still have an opportunity to talk to you anytime I want to. As a matter of fact, I know we're talking about BB, Dr. Sho, Eggs as you call him, whatever name we decide to address him as, but I would just like to say to you that beyond talking about BB, I'm also one of your legacies. Because if you didn't train me when I came to you, I wouldn't be here. So beyond thanking you for taking time out, even though it was not the best of time for you to drive to the studio, beyond thanking you for that, I want to also say thank you for everything you imparted on me as a person when I worked with you.
And I should thank you.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, I always tell people that the most dynamic in nature is the human being. All right. So if you teach someone to do something in a particular way, and that person then goes out and does it better, and that's it. So you should actually go ahead and say thank you.
Can you see me blushing as black as I am?
Else it could have been some wasted effort.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You know how much I love you. I don't have to say it again.
Thank you,
sir. Stay with us. 100. We can release you 100. Stay with us.
Well,
I've been talking to the great ballet, Mr. Jimi Awosika, on the Movement Studio. Like, follow, share. There is more to come where this came from. Thank you so much. My name remains Tosh. Have a good day.